Yes, today's video is about flags, and that is an important issue for a number of reasons, not least because we will be talking about American flags and Americans take their flags seriously. To illustrate that point, here is Andy Hamilton in an episode of QI. For fair use declaration purposes, there is a reason that I am using this clip from this particular episode of QI, which will make itself clear as the video unfolds.
I was a Boy Scout and we went to an international jamboree in Sweden, and we were given the place next to the American Boy Scouts, who were squeaky clean and got up at like 7:30 in the morning for this almost, like you say, religious running up of the flag. You know, and we found this quite irritating every morning. You know, we're having breakfast trying to drink our lager and stuff, and and we had a kid with us called John Pennington, who was fantastically fast. He was like Billy Whiz, and John went across and stole it and ran off into the woods. And it caused a sort of minor international incident. We had this delegation of the organisers came to see us and said, the Americans are saying if you don't return their flag, they're going home. We thought, result? We thought, that's great. So in the end, grudgingly, we returned their flag, but it's a very good early insight into American foreign policy.
And in response to that, here is Stephen Fry giving the British attitudes towards flags, including their own flag.
Because we have a royal family, we don't have to invest our sense of patriotism and statehood and everything into something as odd as a flag, whereas Americans don't have that. They have to sort of use this flag, and they really are very sensitive. Nobody cares about the Union Jack particularly. I mean, it's sometimes flown upside down.
Groundwork successfully laid. Now, following the tragic racist killings in a well-known church in South Carolina, a lot of people have been turning their attention to this flag. And the reason that they are turning their attention to this flag is because it is widely regarded as a racist symbol. Now, the flag has its defenders, not without reason, but it is still getting taken down from government buildings, and even retailers such as Amazon are refusing to sell it, which is quite interesting. The flag defenders might want to take note of that, because if Amazon is taking the moral high ground over you, then you've got problems. Yep. Hi, Ali. Hi. Look, after our last video, where we kind of had a go at Google, I don't want to burn our bridges with all potential sponsors. Well, why not? I'm about to burn bridges with potential viewers. Right, we talked about this. You need to be nice and polite and respectful to all sides here, because Americans take their flags seriously. We do not know if they'll be able to take things in the humour you intend them. So just be nice. Got it? Got it. Is he gone? Is he gone? Yes. Right, listen up, you inbred, straw-eating, Bible-bashing, homophobic, Yankee Doodle racists. Let's get a few things straight. Oh. You're still here. Yeah, I'm still here. Now you're on your last warning. If you cannot be nice to everyone, you're not doing it. Okay? I promise. So let's get a few things straight. You'll notice that I never referred to that flag as the Confederate flag. The reason? It's not the Confederate flag. The Confederates had 3 official flags, the first of which was this. That flag was the original Stars and Bars as well, so calling this flag the original Stars and Bars or the original Confederate flag would be wrong on both counts. The problem with the first Confederate flag was it looked too much like the American flag, especially in the heat of battle, so they changed it to this. But obviously in the heat of battle that would be unpopular as well because it looks too much like a flag of truce, so it was redesigned to this. Sorry, I didn't have a proper picture of that flag. So the flag everybody is talking about is actually the Confederate Battle Flag, which rose in popularity with the Confederate Army as the war went on. And that forms some of the basis as why it is seen as a racist symbol today, because it is literally linked with fighting to protect slavery and racism in the South of America. Now that does not necessarily mean that that is what the flag means to you. I get that. And I understand for you it might be about heritage, about history, it might be about your ancestors. I'm totally okay with that. But that doesn't change the fact that it is widely regarded as a racist symbol, and therefore it cannot be seen flying outside of government buildings. It is right to take it down. Now that is different from you flying it from a flagpole on your house, putting it on your license plate, putting it on a belt buckle. If you want to do that, you should be allowed to do that. And I find it slightly hypocritical of Amazon to say that they are not going to sell those flags given some of the things that they will sell. So I'm not trying to take away your right to do that on an individual basis, and your right to believe the flag means whatever you believe it means. But sometimes there is a difference between what is objectively the case and what is subjectively the case. It is a racist flag even if it is not racist to you, because your understanding of what the flag means does not dictate what the flag actually means in today's society. Let me give you a famous example. The swastika is world renowned now as a symbol of fascism and hate. It is so well linked with those concepts that I am not going to put a picture of it on my screen because I don't want people to screen cap it, and I don't want to be a guy that downloaded that symbol onto his laptop. However, for many years the swastika was not linked with that at all. It is in fact one of the world's oldest symbols. It predates a lot of religion. So for the vast majority of its existence, spanning thousands of years, it actually stood for wealth and long life. It was only in the 1920s, 1930s when a guy came along by the name of Adolf Hitler. Him again. You know, the more I hear about that guy, the less I like him. Anyway, he came along and he changed the meaning forever when he adopted it as the symbol of the Nazi party. The Nazis became very powerful. We all know the rest. Nowadays, it is seen as a symbol of hate. Now, however good at history you are, you might know the original meaning of that symbol. But you try explaining that to your neighbours if you start flying it on a flag above your house. Because unless your neighbours are Hindu, they are very unlikely to believe you. So, like I say, by all means defend the Confederate flag, the Confederate Battle Flag, and your right to use it. I don't have a problem with that. But if you are going to, then at least have the intellectual honesty to stick to the issue and not use deflection tactics and try and drag other things into it. What am I talking about? I'm talking about some of the comments I'm seeing on YouTube. For example, this one, 6 words, British flag was just as bad. Can we have the British flag here just a moment? So, no further context or citation needed, just British flag was just as bad. Can anybody shed some light on this? Well, how about this guy? A Briton lecturing Americans, that is spelt Britain as in the way the country is spelt, not B-R-I-T-O-N, which is what you should use if you're talking about somebody from Britain, but never mind, we'll let that slide. A Briton lecturing Americans on what perspective they should hold regarding part of their own history? Nice. I'm pretty sure the UK engaged in slavery at one point in their history, and it was after the creation of the Union Jack. You're pretty sure then? You don't want to just double check that, look it up at all? Don't worry, because I did, and you're slightly wrong, but we'll get to that. So why not tell your own people about how they need to remove their own flag because evil was once a part of their history? He goes on about telling you you're ignorant, etc. And a British person saw that, called him out on it, and his response was thus. Well, your flag was affiliated with a war on the US and the loss of more than 13,000 US lives between multiple wars from 1775 to 1815, which is why I feel neither Oliver nor you. Context, he was commenting on a video in which we see John Oliver calling for the removal of the Confederate Battle Flag, get to tell us what we should do with our flags. Further, as I mentioned above, not only are you not American, but you are not from the South, so you have no realm of knowledge or experience within which it is acceptable for you to appreciate the South history enough to give recommendations. He goes on like this for quite some time. So there are a couple of things here. Firstly, the creation of the Union Jack being flown in the American War of Independence. Wrong! In the American War of Independence, you would have probably seen this flag. So not the present day Union Jack then. It would have taken you a couple of minutes to look that up and realise that the American War of Independence predates the formation of the current Union Jack as we see it today, although you might have seen that flag towards the end of the wars you are talking about, but then you would also want to note that American soldiers throughout history have fought on the same site as that flag as well, although in the case of the Second Gulf War, somebody really should have told your soldiers that we were on the same side so they didn't keep shooting ours in friendly fire. However, the bigger point you're making here is the old "you're not from round here" fallacy. Your opinion is not valid if you do not come from the place you're talking about, no matter how well researched, reasoned, or argued your point is. Now, that is complete rubbish. And if that defence did actually hold any sway, then the last person that should be making it is an American, considering Americans don't really interfere in the affairs of the other countries or tell them how they should do things, unless you count Scotland, England, the United Kingdom in general, France, Germany, Mexico, Russia, Cuba, Saudi Arabia, Pakistan, Iraq, Iran, Vietnam. I've run out of fingers. Do I need to keep going? So I know Americans like to jump to their own defence and say, you shouldn't be talking about our culture because you're not from round here. Well, it's about time you realise that is about the most hypocritical thing you can do, given that America's entire international reputation is built upon how much they interfere in the affairs of other countries. So let's move on. Then scrap the Brit flag. How many forced colonies did it fly over? People falling for this distraction are worse than the so-called people wearing those shirts. So this is a distraction, and you talking about the British flag isn't. It's not really about the colonies. I don't think it was the flag that the colonies had a problem with. There is a history to the flag which has been retained and is entirely different to racism and slavery, but I will explain that when I go into the history of the flag once I'm done with these comments. Now this next guy, you know he's important because he's talking all in capitals. And talking about bad flags, I remember the Union Jack flag in places where the Brits shouted to innocent people. How about that? Okay, so you remember the Union Jack flag, so are you saying that you're 500, 600 years old? Probably not. But the other point maybe we can do something about. Innocent people of the world. As a British person, I would like to say a heartfelt apology. I am sorry that we shouted at you. It is inexcusable. There seems to be a fallacy amongst British thinking that if you speak to somebody that does not speak English loudly and slowly, they will understand. I'm sure that has caused a great deal of upset in the past, and I know it is the apology that you have all been waiting for, so I hope you can accept that and we can move on with unity. There, happy now? I've apologised for the shouting, because that was clearly what most people were bothered about British history. So, the British citizen whose country flies a flag known as the butcher's apron wants to critique someone else's flag. Racism, an operation where exports from England for centuries. Interesting. Are you talking about the British flag or the English flag? Because they are two different things, as I am about to explain. And although the flag might be colloquially, or although not widely known as the butcher's apron, there is the issue that it has retained its original meaning, which I am about to explain. This is the Scottish flag. It is a white St Andrew's cross on a blue background. The story goes that after Jesus died, his disciples went around the world spreading his word. St Andrew went to a place where the locals didn't want to hear it and they decided to crucify him. However, he protested that he could not be executed in the same way as his Lord and Saviour, so they crucified him on a different type of cross. Fast forward through a few centuries and a few details, and Scotland are about to battle England. The leader of the Scottish army prays on the eve of battle, and he promises that if he wins, he will make St Andrew the patron saint of Scotland. That night, Andrew appears to him in a dream and assures him of victory. In the morning, the clouds form a St Andrew's cross against the blue sky, and this is taken as an omen. It inspires the troops, and they beat England at the battle near what is now known as Ilchenford. And that is where we get the flag from, the white St Andrew's cross on a blue background. Now, this is the English flag. It is the flag of St George. So the original Union flag was this. It is an amalgamation of the Scottish and English flags. Also the Welsh, because at the time that this was created, Wales was considered a principality of England. Sorry Wales, not my decision. And the flag has never lost its meaning. In 1801, Ireland joined the United Kingdom, whether they wanted to or not. So the flag of St Patrick was incorporated into the Union flag as well, and it became like this. And that is why the United Kingdom uses the Union Jack as its national flag. It literally represents the union of Scotland, England, Wales and Ireland, although Northern Ireland is the only part of Ireland that is still part of the United Kingdom. We kept the St Patrick's Cross. Now, reading through those YouTube comments, there was an interesting comment which didn't necessarily differentiate between the UK flag and the English flag, and somebody will raise that point if I don't address it. The English flag, the flag of St George, was used throughout the Crusades, so it's possibly controversial, but again, it is just the flag of St George, and despite the Crusades, what St George is most famous for is slaying a dragon. Again, sorry Wales.
As we're being very dull and pedantic, which is what one does on this show, are we not supposed to call it the Union flag?
Yeah, it's a very good point. It's only the Union Jack.
I mean, that was boring.
It is the Union Jack, though, when...
When what?
When flying from a
flying
From a boat.
from a boat.
Yes.
It's a what?
It's a Union Jack then.
It's only a jack when it's on a boat.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do this. Sorry, Charlie Hickson, Stephen Fry, I'm going to have to find 10 points off of both of you. The truth is that nobody really knows the origin of the term Union Jack, although it does seem plausible that it comes from the small flag that used to be on the bow of British ships, where it would have been known as the Jack, and that would also go a long way to explaining why people believe that it is only the Union Jack when it is flown at sea. However, to clear the matter up, there was an Act of Parliament in 1908 which explicitly stated that the Union Jack shall be the flag of the United Kingdom, and therefore on land or sea it is nowadays known as the Union Jack. So there you go. Even the experts get it wrong sometimes. Sometimes the issue of what a flag means can be complicated. And if you want to continue to defend the Confederate Battle Flag, please do so. But at least confine it to your own personal debates so that Johnny Foreigner doesn't have to jump in and defend his own flag. Please stop drawing false parallels, and if after all that you still want to get rid of the British flag, then at least give the best reason for it, which is not that it is forever associated with slavery or forever associated with colonialism, it's that it is forever associated with a song by Scooch. Thank you.